Check, check. Thank you. It is now 6:01, and I'd like to call the Lake Worth Beach Community Redevelopment Agency meeting for Tuesday, March 11th to order. Roll call, please.
Mr. Daniel Morgan. Here. Mr. Drew Bartlett.
Here.
Ms. Carla Blockson.
Here.
Ms. Leah Furch.
Here.
The following members.
right here.
Oh, Ms. Donna Kerner. She is here. Ms. Ann Fairfax and Ms. Caroline Shamshi Basha are not present.
At this time, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Wait, you gotta wait. Take your time. Okay. No. Come on up. We can always wait for you. We put you all the way over here just to give you a little more. Want to sit in Daniel's seat? Giving away your seat, Daniel.
No exceptions.
It's clear, yeah. Okay. Now, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Actually. At this time, do we have any? At the time, do we have any additions, deletions, or reordering of our agenda? Okay. At this time, we're going to have a comment from the CRA attorney.
Good evening. David Tulsa, CRA attorney. I just wanted to provide a comment in light of some communications I've had with the city attorney, specifically with respect to the ability of a member of the CRA board to run for office without having to resign. I had conversations with this city attorney towards the end of last year and confirmed again today that there is nothing in state law that prevents a CRA board member from running for office while at the same time holding their office here with the CRA board. It's not a matter for the CRA board to consider. It's not a matter within the CRA board's jurisdiction. So to the extent that any comments made here this evening, from a legal perspective, they'd be considered out of order. So I just wanted to provide that information to you on this evening, which I understand is election evening here in the city of Lake Worth Beach. So thank you very much, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Please talk into the mic.
Excuse me?
Daniel, say it again.
Are there any rules on the books for the city that govern, voluntary positions?
The city under state law has the right to appoint members to CRA board. The appointment of members to CRA board is governed by state law as well as city ordinance. But those,
I'm not saying.
may I finish? All right, whatever rules, codes that the city has cannot conflict with state law. With respect to the provision related to resign to run, that is governed by state law.
I'm not asking you
Okay.
to say that. I'm just plainly asking, does the city not have rules regarding individuals running for office or unappointed positions?
It does not, no.
The city.
The city, correct. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, we are going to have public comment on non-agenda items. If you would like to make a public comment, please remember to give your name and your address. Thank you. If anyone would like to make a public comment, why don't we start on this side over here, and then we'll work to the back of the room. Anyone over here? Well, come on up.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Todd Townsend. I live at 502 South J Street. I think that we've got a very pressing issue going on today, and that's about a city about to go into default. And so I think that essentially we should actually dissolve this body and spend all that money on getting ourselves out of this possibility of falling into default. I think that WMODA is helping to sacrifice our downtown for this project, which I think is a bad idea. It's not going to give us the right amount or even close to a parking expansion that we desperately need. And so that when default actually comes, we'll lose our utility. We'll lose our beach. They'll go ahead and just pave a road right down the length of the beach, and it'll stay. And so we will then be subject to West Palm. So we'll be Lake Worth Beach, West Palm. And it's coming. But there are some people that think that, oh, if we just build a museum and build an accompanying apartment complex, that's going to help. I think that that's not going to help. And I think that as a city, we're basing our future on the projection that this museum is going to bring us up and put us into a high position. I think that's a lot to bet, you know, against a really serious situation. So that's all I wanted to say. I think that we're making trouble for ourselves, and I think that this thing has to be backed up and looked at. And I think that we've fallen into a scam. See, they have us arguing about a museum. Okay. And so from the outside, that looks terrible. These people are fighting against a museum. How silly is that, right? But it's actually the apartment complex.
It's not an agenda item.
Should I stop for the boss or should I keep going? Can I cut it on you when you're talking? I still love you. Where was I? Sorry. So yeah, placing a bet on something like this to actually lift us up out of a pending situation is a bad idea. The numbers don't work out. It's just a really bad idea, and I wish I have written down more to say. So I just think that should fall into consideration. And I think that we've got a real problem. And right now the CRA is helping spend us into this default so that once we're all spent out, there's going to be no way to dig out of it. And so essentially big business will be okay, but we'll lose our autonomy. Thank you.
For those of you who are doing a public comment, please understand that it is on non-agenda items. If it's an item that is on the agenda, that is not up for public comment. Please refrain from doing so. So please state your name.
Peggy Fisher, North A Street. I'd like to say I appreciate everything that CRA has done for this city. All the homes for affordable homes that have been built, the millions of dollars that have been brought into this city is because of the CRA. So I want to say, as a resident of this city, I appreciate the CRA and everything they've done.
Is there anyone on this side who would like to make a public comment? If you do.
Good evening, Betty Resch, 207 South L Street. I don't know, and probably you've been caught up, but I think we have a very serious problem in Tallahassee. There's legislation pending in Tallahassee to eliminate the CRAs, to not allow them to get any more debt as of 2025. And I spent about 2 hours yesterday calling senators and Congress representatives saying, this is a really bad idea. CRAs are great. They've done a great thing for our city. So please oppose this. So I don't know if the meeting was today for that committee or not, but did it happen? And it was at 4 o'clock. So it's easy to look up on the legislative thing on the website. Please keep, it wouldn't be over today, even if there was a vote today, but they're out to get the cities. And this is just one way they're doing it. So thanks.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to make a public comment? Please stand. Okay, thank you. Please review the minutes from February 11th and let me know if there's any corrections or I'm waiting for a motion. Sure, what would you like?
Yeah, I would like to make a correction to towards the very end in board comments where it says that some of the reiterating something that I said. of the candidates running for office would like to disband the CRA. I believe I said expand. Candidates at the town forum talked about expanding the CRA, not disbanding the CRA, and that's it.
Do I have a motion for with correction?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes with Commissioner Daniels' correction to his statement at the end.
I'll second. And all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion passed. Any nays? At this time, we're going to have presentations for 1000 Lake Avenue, update by Bhavin. Want to make sure I pronounce it right. By Bhavin Shah of Oak Lane Partners. Please approach.
Can you all hear me? Okay, great.
Hello.
Thank you. Thanks for giving me a couple of minutes today and nice to see you all again. I just wanted to give you a couple of updates on some projects that we're involved in where the CRA has been extremely instrumental in supporting us through the development process. First one is 1000 Lake. As you know, that's been under development for quite a long time. We are happy to report that finally, after a lot of back and forth, we're making the right progress from a permitting standpoint. We unfortunately had to go through historical approval one more time, and that held up the ability to get permits. And then there were some potential issues with certain permits not being released, so other permits could be approved. And I'm happy to say that as of literally 5 minutes ago, the update I got was that the historical board has again approved the project, and we are awaiting the electrical and mechanical approvals to happen so that we could continue the work as planned. We had originally started work, and then we were red tagged and had to stop work. So it took a long process to get that redone. We are happy and hopeful that this project will continue and that we'll have something new to add to Lake Worth very soon. I also wanted to give a report on another project that we're involved in, again, where the CRA was instrumental, which is 14 Southeast Coast, which is just south of the Eco Building, if you guys are aware of where that is, on the block right behind the Eco Building. We are repurposing that building as well. We have received permits and approved, not approvals, but we have applied for permits, which I believe were received to bring in a slew of new tenants into that building. As you guys may be aware, there's a very nice coffee shop that just opened up in there. I hope you all have tried it. It's a great coffee shop. And we're opening up a couple of other tenants in there as well. So I appreciate all the support and happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Any questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is Christine here from Catholic College? Aye. Okay. Okay. Now we're going to have the presentation, 1213 Lake Avenue, update by someone for Melissa for Catholic College. Good to see you again.
Yeah, it's very nice to see you. I am very happy to be stepping in for our CEO. I'm sorry. Oh, Melissa Cubillos. I am the volunteer engagement manager at Paths to College, and I'm happy to be stepping in for our CEO and founder to give an update on Palm Beach County's very first youth mentoring center called Catapult. And so I first just want to, I would be remiss not to say thank you to the Lake Worth CRA, who has been absolutely instrumental in getting this project up and running. And a big thank you to Joan, Olivia, Carla, and all past and present Lake Worth CRA members for essentially having this building in Lake Worth. And so the Catapult building is going to be a place where Hope has an address and students can literally walk and get the resources, the guidance, the support, the inspiration, and the belief that they need in order to succeed and reach their most audacious dreams and goals. And so I do have in front of you, you have collateral on what we envision for our Youth Mentoring Center building. And so we essentially will be providing individual, but also group assistance to students where they can receive mentoring, they can receive workshops such as resume building, resume writing, personal statement essays. They'll get career panels where they can hear from industry experts to get that career guidance on where they might want to go, career aptitude tests, financial literacy, all the works. We can go on and on the assistance that they'll be able to get at our new building that's going to be at 1213 Lake Avenue. And so I'm very excited to share some updates that we have. We just submitted our permitting, and so we just got approved for that, and we're very excited to start our renovations as soon as possible. A big thank you to the Department of Sustainability who did our courtesy of review. And so now we're just waiting and hoping that we get approved very soon. And then we will start the commencement of our construction. And so we're calling it a groundbreaking, but it's the commencement of our construction, which you all will be invited to. So we're working on planning that. And we're really hoping to open this building before the end of the year. Yes, I know. We're really hoping. So we are very grateful for the in-kind donation from Hendricks Brothers Construction, who is doing our construction in kind, as well as Spina O'Rourke, who is doing our design work for the building. And so we're really excited to be able to expand the amount of students that we service here in Palm Beach County. Right now, we service about 1,000 in our fellowship, but also our outreach. Now with the new building, when we open, we'll be able to service anywhere from 3,000 to hopefully 5,000 students. So just a huge thank you. Thank you for letting me be here and for everyone's hard work on this project. And if anyone has any questions, I am happy to answer.
Board, do you have any questions?
Great.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Now we're to our consent agenda. Can I have a motion for the consent agenda, please?
Motion to approve the consent agenda. I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Now we are to our action agenda. Joan, did you want to?
Just ask anybody opposed.
I'm sorry.
Just ask.
Oh,
any-
I'm sorry. Is there any opposed?
so
Thank
your-
you.
Your motion passes unanimously.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Joan Olivas, CRA Executive Director. We've actually put together a PowerPoint presentation because, well, let's face it, this agreement is rather large. So I am going to be doing the presentation both with Renee and with Brent Whitfield, who is representing the city for the parking portion of this presentation. Renee?
Good evening. Good evening, members of the CRA board. My name is Renee Miller, and I represent the Wiener Museum of Decorative Arts Mixed Use Cultural Arts Campus. And I'll be joined with your staff to kind of walk you through the two agreements that are before you this evening. Next slide, please. Oh, awesome. Yara. Awesome. Fantastic. Thank you. So I'm going to just take a moment to provide a little bit of background. We'll walk you first through the K Street Garage Agreement. Then we will walk you through the long-term parking agreement. We'll talk a little bit about the critical path and then talk about the next steps. So before we hop into where we are going, let's talk a little bit about where we have been. This is a slide that this body has seen before, but there's been a lot of talk about all the discussions that we have had. And I want to just take a moment to recognize that we have since February 13th of 2024, those flags represent all of the times for which we have publicly discussed, debated, and seeked public comment in certain fashions for this project. In addition to that, in the last couple of months, we've had 4 additional meetings. So in total, this project has been discussed publicly at 18 different meetings since February of 2024, when we first came before this body to talk about the opportunity and whether or not we potentially would be a right fit for working with this organization. The site plan overall, again, this is similar to what you have seen before, but just for the point of reference, the site is between L and M on Lake Avenue. And as you can see, the museum is located primarily on the corner of Lake and M Streets. In between the museum and the residential is an art walk, which will be, if we move forward with this, would be deeded between L and M, deeded back to developer, and the developer has agreed in the development agreement, which has been approved, to have that be public access in perpetuity. Behind that, you'll see the residential space, which is also inclusive of a 2,100 square foot community art space, 8 affordable housing artist lofts, and the remainder of the units, 102 units being market rate residential. The area that you see that's marked Art Walk Extension is the areas between L and K streets. And that area marked Art Walk Extension is the portion that's the partnership between the city and potentially the developer, where we will extend the design of the Art Walk to the city's portion of this development between L and K. Contemplated primarily this evening in the project, in the documents that are before you, is the proposed city parking garage. As a part of this whole conversation, the developer is partnering with both the city and the CRA to develop a city-owned asset on K and First Streets. Oh, I failed to mention that in previous discussions, this body has considered, as did the city commission, the relocation of the historic structures, and the squares that you see on the site plan represent the location for which they're currently contemplated to be relocated. So when we talked about this deal, and there's many moving parts, there are 6 agreements that are required to be able to effectuate all of the things that we have talked about really in that site plan. 4 of which have already been approved: the development agreement, the purchase and sale agreement, the long-term maintenance agreement for the Arts Alley, and the contributing structures relocation agreement. So the 2 action items that are before you tonight are the K Street Garage Construction Agreement, also referred to as the Comprehensive Agreement, and the long-term parking agreement. Why do we need those 2 documents? The K Street, you can think about it in this context. The K Street Garage Construction Agreement will govern all of the things: design, construction, monitoring, all the things to get from today till the delivery of the parking garage. And then that terminates. The long-term parking agreement will govern the relationship with respect to the parking garage for the next 20 years. Talk more into the mic? Yes, I can. Did I break it? I'm sorry. Okay. 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 Click forward, you said? Oh. So I think you might have adjusted this slide down. So the graphic moved down. Grab that, just grab that. Yep. And yeah, there it is. A little more. There it is. Thank you. Okay. Fantastic. Sorry about that. So the K Street parking garage and the idea of the K Street parking garage far predates the discussion of WMODA. So to just give a little bit of color, we first start, I believe, talking about K Street Garage in 2018 is my understanding, with the initial WGI parking study, which identified that there was 150 space deficit in the downtown. Moving forward to 2022, WGI prepares a conceptual site plan on behalf of the city that evaluated the feasibility from a design standpoint of placing a garage on the current at-grade parking lot located on K Street. In March of 2024, we come before the body to talk about WMODA. And we are then authorized to begin negotiating with your staff. In August of 2024, that initial 2018 WGI parking study is now updated to evaluate what is the existing status of the deficit of parking in the downtown. And that study indicates that the deficit exists and it has grown to 241 space deficit in the downtown. In September of this year, we submit as a part of our overall development agreement, a comprehensive, an unsolicited proposal for the development of the K Street Garage as a part of our overall project. And in November of this year, the city, the CRA, and WMOTA successfully enter into a development agreement and purchase and sale agreement for the project. Fast forward to where we are today, per that development agreement, we were to come back before you with a comprehensive agreement for the K Street parking garage design and construction, and that's what you have before you today. So both Brent and Ms. Oliva will talk to you about the details, but this has been a long negotiation. And there have been many, many, many elements that we have had to discuss. But to try to give you an idea of the things that we balanced from the city and the CRA's perspective, there were budget constraints. Of course, the desire to address the deficit for parking and ensure parking availability. The city and the CRA's desire to ensure that they would maintain, even though the developer would be providing the construction and design services through the P3 agreement, wanting to ensure that they would retain design and quality control over the asset, as it ultimately will be a city asset. And of course, certainty of cost. In the government realm, cost overruns are not something that are good, and not something that really can be absorbed easily. And then finally, administrative oversight. On the WMOTA side, we were really concerned about streamlining process, making sure that we would have a value added from a time and delivery standpoint. We were concerned about risk mitigation and cost controls as well as the impact overall to our true mission as a part of this, which is the delivery of the WMOTA mixed-use complex. And finally, ensuring that we would be securing the repayment of the $3.5 million revenue note for which the developer is contributing to this at below prime rates. With that, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Renee. So much of this has been, again, Brent Whitfield, Genmore Associates, working with city staff and CRI staff on this. Much of this information has been presented in some of the previous workshops, but much of this information has been presented at previous workshops, but I wanted to make sure that in the context of the parking agreement, which is what we're discussing, we kind of properly set the table for the background of how we got here. And so really the underpinning of that is the WGI studies and efforts that were taken on before WMOTA was a word here in the city. So in 2018, as Renee had mentioned, was the first time that the city decided there needed to be an effort to look at what was the parking situation, especially in the downtown, and how do we need to kind of evaluate what we want to do going forward in the city to make sure we can keep up with growth and provide the level of service of expectation. So at that time, the project was basically to do some field surveys, have staff with clipboards, tracking how many parking spots are taken and available at different points during that year. And so it was on-street spots and off-street spots, which are surface lot spots. And they did Saturday, Thursday, different times a day. And what the end of that kind of evaluation found was that there was overcapacity at certain times, which are the peak hours, which oftentimes is kind of the high commercial productivity time for the downtown, and that the recommendation in that study was 150 more spots are needed to prevent spillover into the residential communities, which offsets parking from residents or guests of residents outside of the downtown core. Now, the city, in recognizing that between 2018 and now there was, intervening COVID issues, and there's been growth and there's been other elements of the city, wanted to do a parking update, and so returned to WGI and said, "Hey, let's refresh that data." And I think one of the nice things about the refresh is you have license plate scanner data. So instead of just kind of moments in time analysis with a clipboard, you can take scanner data for the on-street parking and look at that spread over all the dates and times from January to May. And so the 2024 January to May window showed that the occupancy is really in that 80 to 85% during kind of afternoon, early evening hours, and 90% during weekday evenings, and there's no availability during those kind of peak hours on the weekends. And so that's, again, the on-street spots, that's what's scanned. But oftentimes those are the spots that are adjacent to the spots that folks want to be. They fill quickly, and so you see those as a good representation. So these are some charts that we pulled from the report, and kind of demonstrates what the percentages of fill are in the downtown core of the downtown. And they also looked in some of the broader city with respect to areas that have any kind of regulation on parking as far as duration of parking allowed. But anyway, in the upper right, you can see that the analysis by WGI showed that the parking adequacy as of that evaluation was negative 241. So they're looking at 241 spot deficit, assuming that we are at the occupancy that we project our downtown could be. I'll say that assumes that some of the vacant storefronts, not all, but some of the vacant storefronts have tenants. So it is maybe not necessarily what you would see anecdotally that we are missing 240 spots, but anecdotally we have some vacant storefronts. If those were full, we are at that deficit. So we want to be able to meet that capacity. So I think one of the important things to do is take a step back and say, all right, we have these two different studies, and we want to look at the context of what our downtown looks like. What does that mean? So the studies aren't just recommending a garage on K Street. It is a recommendation, but it's one of the recommendations. They also recommend a parking program, a paid parking program. And the intent of that is to facilitate, kind of sectioning where you want employees of residents, of businesses parking, making sure that you're managing your parking inventory as best as you can. Hopefully you're getting some turnover, so you're opening up spots for some of these, barbers or restaurants or things like that for folks to come and park. And you're also generating revenue so you can maintain and upgrade your parking facilities and your downtown. Also, it's known that paid parking programs, it does encourage alternative modes of transportation, so it incentivizes folks in the community to maybe walk or bike downtown. But it also included, and this was highlighted in the 2024 update, what that K Street parking garage could look like, how it would add 185 new spots to the 40 plus spots that are there, or 60 plus surface spots total, so you can get in that 250 spot range for the parking garage, and it looked at what that means from a revenue perspective and how it could pay for itself with revenue from the parking program. So here I think the point is to look at what those takeaways are and how it's related to the WMOTA project. So these studies were, as was mentioned, begun before WMOTA was a word in the city. So when you start to see how the WMOTA project can kind of integrate with the needs of the downtown parking program based on the study results that we've seen in these evaluations, it's really creates an opportunity to say, hey, the city needs a parking garage. We identified that we have a parking problem. If we implement the different recommendations of the study, a paid parking program, we want to construct a parking garage, we can actually end up with the things that the city needs to facilitate filling those empty storefronts, growing our downtown, meeting the level of service that's recommended for parking, and do it in a way with a partner with WMOTA that we can get it built within 5 years of or get it paid for within 5 years of this agreement. And so it kind of dovetails nicely to look at what those recommendations are and what the opportunities afforded by WMOTA are. So I don't know if I turn it over now to Joan.
Please.
Thanks.
Okay, so what I don't think a lot of people understand, or maybe not a lot, but maybe at least some do, is the 63 spaces that currently exist over on L&M have been subsidized by the CRA for the last 20 years, approximately. They weren't all bought at the same time. However, during those 20 years, we have either paid on an option, we have paid rent, or we outwardly eventually purchase these spots. We pay for electric, we pay for water, and we pay non-ad valorem taxes on it. So there's 65 spaces there. K Street, right now, there exists approximately 63 spaces. Might be a little fewer than that. So that's a total of 126 that are existing. So when we're talking about WMOTA, we're talking about the need for 51 spaces for their potential patrons. Now, that doesn't mean that those 50 spaces or 51 spaces are restricted. They're not at all. They are shared. And there is no guarantee that if you are going to WMOTA, you are definitely going to have one of those 51 spaces. It's just saying that they are paying in lieu of for these 51 spaces, and those spaces are to be shared with the public. The city planned spaces for penny sales tax. The city, as you know, bought a number of properties on L&M, or I should say asked the CRA to buy those properties in order to provide parking. And those monies were supposed to produce approximately 65 spaces. And those spaces do not exist as of now. Additional spaces in this K Street garage, a new would be 152 for a total of 268, which is what we are talking about today, a 268 space garage. Less existing spaces, you get new public spaces at 142. So let's talk about the important part, the financing of all of this. You've seen this slide before. Numbers have changed slightly, not too much in any way. Total garage funding, we have a maximum of $8.5 million. The initial investment will include the $1 million from WMOTA, 1.5 from the CRA, and 2.5 from the city. And that will make a down payment of $3.5 million. Immediately, those monies would go into escrow. So then it leaves us a balance of, it leaves us a 1, 2, 5. Thank you, 5. Then it leaves us a balance of 3.5. So out of that 3.5, the CRA with TIF dollars over the next 5 years would pay 2.5 of that 3.5. And again, we would hold the note, not the city. The remaining a little over $1 million would be paid by the city from I believe penny sales tax. And we will have paid the garage off completely, no debt, within 5 years. So there's a little breakdown at the bottom of who is paying what costs, what percentage of the cost for that. And it's important to know that WMOTA will be providing a note for us at a 4% interest rate. That is an interest rate that we would never, ever get on the market. Just the process for going out and getting a revenue note is costly and extremely timely. So they're not only saving us money, but they're also saving us a significant amount of time. And this was done actually by Yannick, our finance director. So what he did is he went and he compared a 20-year city revenue note at 6%. And currently the interest rate's probably closer to 7.5, as compared to a W Moda financing that they're doing for us for 5 years at 4%. It saves the city and the CRA a minimum of $2.3 million versus going out and getting a 20-year revenue note. So these are kind of all the obligations that we currently have. The city, according to the agreement, all these things are in your agreement. We're just compressing it for time. The city is to appoint a project manager. They will enter into a ground lease with the CRA, and that is because the city currently owns 13 and 19 South K, and the CRA owns 704, 710, and 25 South K. So we will enter a ground lease for 5 years, so the city can build a garage at no cost. The city is, because it is a city asset that is going to be built, the city is to complete their entitlements for the garage. The initial investment from the city, again, is 2.5 million penny sales tax. And they are to reimburse us 1 million of the 3.5 million towards the note. And that is in, I believe, year 4 and 5. And they are in charge of permitting and oversight to make sure everything is run correctly. As far as the CRA is concerned, we are also probably going to appoint a project manager, or I may do it. We are going to issue a revenue note of $3.5 million, again, only 4%. We will enter a ground lease with the city. We will provide an initial investment of 1.5 towards what we're calling the down payment. We will covenant to budget and appropriate so we can pay off the revenue note in 5 years. And we will also do all project oversight. We'll be mostly involved in overseeing any kind of costs, any kind of payments, as opposed to us being involved in the actual construction of the garage, because that's not our forte. W Moda, they also will have a project manager. They will construct K Street Garage on the city's behalf. They will contribute $1 million towards that construction of the garage. And they have agreed, as I said before, to provide a $3.5 million note to the CRA at 4% for 5 years. And again, after those 5 years, the city nor the CRA will owe any money. Some other key provisions that are in the document before you. City Commission will review a design report. So over the last few months, city staff has been working very closely with the City Commission and giving them examples of other garages throughout the United States. And so the City Commission has kind of picked their top few that they like. We are going to, W Motor is going to take those designs and provide drawings for the city to look at. They'll give them, I believe, a couple different ones to look at so we can kind of hone in on the design that they wish to see. W Motor's money, that $1 million, is at risk first. So that means that while they are doing these drawings and we are looking at them and they're doing the engineering, et cetera, that the money comes out of their 1 million contribution first before we put any money into it or the city puts any money into it. The developer will provide a guaranteed maximum price for the garage, and the GMP is subject to City Commission approval, not CRA approval. Construction funds will be held in an escrow account that we will all agree who exactly will hold that escrow account, and subject to city CRA approval before any payments can be made. So if a payment comes through that we need to review, first it goes to the project managers, then it goes to the city manager, and then it comes to the CRA. Then we call the escrow agent and then we allow them to release those funds. And the developer finally must adhere to all contract provisions and the critical path that is also in the development agreement or face default. And I'm going to ask Renee to come up and do the last few slides, please.
Thank you, Joan. A wise administrator early in my career once told me that government was made for accountability, not efficiency. And the and the and the good administrator figures out how to marry the two. So that came to me as I looked at the process that we have come to today. Certainly, if this was a private process, there would be far less colors. But this is a public-private partnership process, and this represents the need for that accountability and the need for that public involvement and oversight in order for this to be properly done. And so lining with what Joan talked about, our first step is to develop a design report. And that deliverable looks like a very detailed conceptual document. We've done no testing on the site. The city has done no testing on the site thus far. We have to do all of that to make sure there's nothing there that would prevent effective construction of the garage. We have to move through and do some preliminary designs to scale to ensure height and figure out how we could lay out efficiently the garage based on the parameters that we have been given. We have to confirm the number of spaces. Then we have to move through what the facade could look like based on some of the direction that we've already gotten from the City Commission about their desire. And then provide the City Commission with two options in terms of that facade associated with a probable opinion of cost. That's the first step. And at that step, that goes to the City Commission for approval. And at that time, the City Commission will then say to us, we like it, or we don't like it. We need you to change these things. That is a key point, and I think an efficiency measure on our side, because we are not spending money drawing things that we know potentially the City Commission might not like. And that's a time saver and a dollar saver. Then we move on to, if we get that approval, we move on to the preliminary design. The preliminary design is actually a more detailed design document where you're going to have detailed engineering, detailed architectural, all of the things that you would need in order to present something to the city for entitlement. The city, because it's their asset, will move forward with the entitlement application before the processes as prescribed in the code. And then once the entitlement is over, we then move on to doing full construction documents that could be submitted for review. Once those construction documents are submitted for review and we are close to or obtain our permit approvals, we then move forward with what we're referring to as a GMP, and GMP stands for guaranteed maximum price. If you recall in the slide presentation, I talked about cost control and budget constraints. A key thing that in any governmental project, everybody is keen to ensure that there are controls in. So a guaranteed maximum price is a delivery methodology in construction where the contractor buys out the job very early on and everyone locks in their price. There are going to be outliers, acts of God, strike, flood, shortage. I don't know what the future holds for tariffs. There are things, but this is one of the standards which are used to control costs in government construction. In construction, period, not just government construction. Once the guaranteed maximum price is obtained, we have to provide that to the City Commission, and the City Commission, if they approve it, we then move forward and everybody puts their money in the pot. The CRA issues the note. The city puts their 1.5 million in, the CRA puts their 2.5 million in, and the developer then funds the $3.5 million note, and all of that goes into an escrow. And in your contract, you saw a very thick section that talks about payment and controls. Again, there's times in which we put together pay applications. Pay applications go to the city project manager, then they go to the city manager, then they go to the CRA, then they go to the escrow agent before $1 is released to the contractor. So there is a lot of review. And then we move forward with our construction and completion, and it's estimated to be Q4 of 2027. You want me to move through this one as well? With respect to the long-term maintenance, long-term parking agreement, I just want to go over some of the key provisions. I know that's a far less daunting document, but some of the things I'd like to point out. The city under the long-term parking agreement, and as I said before, this is necessary because the construction agreement ends after we deliver the keys to the parking garage, and then we pick up on the long-term parking agreement. The city has sole ownership and responsibility for the operation and maintenance for the garage. We don't own it. We don't take it back after the note. We don't own it during the note. At no time do we own it. The city shall be the sole beneficiary of any revenues from the garage. Museum patrons in this agreement would receive 1 hour, and I might be very clear about that too. Museum patrons would receive 1 hour parking validation in the garage for 5 years. And then after that, that goes away. We may request at the discretion of the city, the reservation of some spaces for large museum events no more than 4 times per year. And they are limited to the months that are off peak for the city, as is shown above. And we get a 50% discount for 5 years, and then that goes away. The city can also, at its discretion, establish residential parking leases for additional vehicles. And that is, the city can decide to offer it or not offer it. That's on a first come, first served basis. And the city decides how much and how many they will offer, if any. And then finally, we want to ensure that the parking spaces that we are participating in will, for the long term, not be committed. And by that, we mean 10 or 15 years from now, the city commission could decide to lease the entire garage to someone. And this provision is meant to say, well, wait, lease as many as you want, but leave 50 open to the public from that perspective. Okay. Hello. Oh, there we go. Did I skip over anything? No. So what are the next steps? If this agreement is adopted today, we'll move on to bring these agreements before the city commission, tentatively scheduled for the March 18th meeting. If approved at the city commission level, the city's project manager, the CRA, and WMOTA will begin work on the design report per the critical path. We have 90 days to deliver that deliverable. And that concludes our presentation.
Before we can have a discussion, before we can have public comment on this issue, we have to make a motion as to the CRA members' thoughts. So I'm waiting for a motion regarding the parking garage.
I'll make a motion to approve the comprehensive agreement for the South K City Parking Garage and the long-term parking facility agreement.
A second. Now we have a motion and a second. Now we can have a discussion. We usually have a discussion and then we have public comment. And our discussion probably should be based a little bit on the public comments. So do you all feel comfortable with us going to public comment first, and then we will have our discussion afterward? I think that may color our thinking and what our thoughts may be. What we're going to do is we're going to start with this side of the room this time. And if you would like to make a public comment, please come up. We don't have cards, so I can't call out your name. So when you please come up, we're going to start over here with this row and we'll go to the back of the room. We'll finish the back row and we'll end up on this side. So if you would like to make a public comment and you're on this side of the room, please join to the podium. And you have a limit of 3 minutes and the timer will be kept.
Hi, my name is Amy Shaw and I live at 123 North F Street. And I'm a proud resident of Lake Worth Beach, and I strongly support the downtown parking garage because it's a smart, necessary investment in our city's future. Right now, downtown faces a 241 space parking deficit, and anyone who's tried to park on a busy night knows how frustrating it can be. A well-planned garage will ease congestion, reduce competition for street parking, and make downtown more accessible for residents, visitors, and businesses. This isn't just about solving a parking problem, it's about strengthening our local economy. When visitors can park easily, they're more likely to stay, shop, dine, and explore our local museums and cultural spaces instead of leaving in frustration. A garage supports our small businesses, creates more walkable downtown, and makes our city a true destination. It's also important to note that the CRA is securing this project in a financially responsible way, saving over $2 million by using a 5-year note with a guaranteed locked-in maximum price. That kind of planning ensures that we get the infrastructure we need without the unnecessary financial risk. This garage is a long-term investment that benefits everyone in Lake Worth Beach. I urge you to move forward with this project and support the continued growth of our downtown. And I support WMOTA. I think it's going to really enhance our town. I really do. Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. Wes Blackman, 241 Columbia Drive. I'm a longtime Lake Worth Beach resident, former Planning and Zoning Historic Resource Preservation Board Chairman. And few of you may know this, but I actually was a CRA commissioner for a while. I strongly support the proposed K Street parking garage and the WMOTA project. Downtown parking has been a significant issue for too long, hindering residents and visitors. A 2018 study and a 2024 update conducted by WGI confirmed the increased need for parking. These studies show high parking occupancy and inadequate supply of spaces for future demand. This problem would worsen with fully occupied storefronts. The K Street garage is essential to addressing this deficit. The city of Lake Worth Beach, not WMOTA, will own and operate it. The CRA, the city, and WMOTA collaborate on funding. WMOTA contributes $1 million towards the construction and a 3.5 below market rate loan. This shows a shared commitment to downtown growth and accessibility. WMOTA did not demand the garage. No free dedicated spaces were provided. However, the garage benefits the entire downtown area. The WMOTA project will transform Lake Worth Beach into more of a unique arts and culture destination than it already is, solidifying the area on the map as a hub for creativity. As one of the only U.S. museums dedicated to fine arts, it will showcase world-class ceramics and glass artistry. This will attract tourists and artists, art enthusiasts, boost local businesses, and create jobs in hospitality and retail. It will also be a resource and learning tool for existing and aspiring artists. The K Street parking garage and the WMOTA project complement each other. Additional parking will facilitate WMOTA and downtown businesses. Surface parking lots are no longer permitted downtown. This public-private partnership addresses the parking needs in a consolidated manner, supporting the significant cultural and economic development while helping downtown in general. In closing, the K Street parking garage and WMOTA project enhance our downtown. The garage will alleviate a well-documented need and improve accessibility. WMOTA will serve as a cultural anchor, attracting visitors and stimulating the local economy. I urge the board to approve these agreements to move forward with this beneficial partnership and ensure a thriving future for Lake Worth Beach. Thank you.
Next person.
Aaron Allen, 208 South Lakeside Drive. I think that the slides tonight illustrate that we have a pretty severe parking deficit in the downtown area. And in my opinion, I think that this project and this partnership with Wimoda is really a home run for the city. The city needs the parking. They want the parking. They cannot afford to build the parking lot. And this is a great opportunity for us to have them partnering with us. Obviously, a lot of work has gone into this, all of these slides that they presented tonight, all the steps in the process that they've been working behind the scenes to make this happen. And I hope that we'll see a unanimous yes on this tonight.
Hi, Lee Lipton, Benny's on the Beach. It seems incredibly simple, but maybe I'm just not looking at it right. The city has stores downtown. The city has businesses that are some thriving, some not thriving. Parking seems to be a nightmare at this level already. From what I'm understanding, there's people who want valet parking, and what's going to end up happening is cars are just going to go into the neighborhoods. And at some point, it's got to be collected somehow in a logical space. Even if there was no MODA, now you add something like a world-class art gallery and the ability to go to dinner and go to the art gallery and do this. I mean, it just seems like an absolute no-brainer. So I hear these things and I just say to myself, I don't understand the question other than from what I'm hearing, which is that you guys are going out of your way to make it the best it possibly can be monetarily. And that's what I hear, that you're doing a great job. So the general feeling of the city, it seems incredible to be able to coordinate parking the right way and to be able to bring an art gallery in, or I don't want to say it, a golf course in by that's even better than it is today, or Gulfstream Hotel, or a vibrant beach. Sounds pretty exciting to me. And this is just one of those pieces. Thank you.
Hi, Julie Seaver, 930 North Federal Highway here in Lake Worth Beach. In addition to all of the really smart things that all of the planning and zoning experts have said, as a Lake Worth Beach resident, I cannot count on one hand the last time that I went to downtown West Palm Beach, because I hate the parking, I hate the traffic, and while I'm still able, I'm able to ride my bike and walk downtown from 10th Avenue North. In a few years, I won't be able to do that. And so I fully support the CRA's decision and approval for this downtown parking garage, because I'm really excited about W Moda's project, and I'm excited about the direction of the downtown Lake Worth area. We are the rise of the creative class, and I like us to be #1 in that arena. So thank you for supporting this parking garage, because we need it.
Would anyone like to speak that is sitting on the back row? If you do, please approach the podium.
Hello, everybody. I think a lot of you know who I am. My name is Olga Salazar. I own Elegant Lady, 514 Lake Avenue, and I support this project because every day I heard my clients, no parking, no parking. People from the other side of the bridge. So they looking for comfort. They looking for something close to all the businesses, not only my business, but I do support this project, and I hope you do too. And I thank you for listening to me.
Hello, Board. Deborah Robert, 127 South K Street. I just want to say, full disclosure, I am a board member for the Benziton Center. And I want to say that people are concerned about WMOTA and how many people will bring in. Just a quick note. Benziton, with really no promotions whatsoever, most people don't even know where it is. We already get 11,000 people a year into the city for glass. We don't have a major gallery. We have one room, and there's really no advertising. It's just glass is hot. So I'm just going to let you know that. And just really fast, it is. If we're going to have growth to solidify the city's future, and this is like a quick little thought I had, is how much better than a multi-million-dollar not-for-profit art museum coupled with an internationally coveted artist who people fly from all over to see, right in our laps. I mean, how much better can we possibly get than that? And then if you pair this with the garage, I live right there. I live 8 houses down from where the garage is. And what Julie just mentioned too, I think is interesting because West Palm, people are saying it's so crowded there, they can't even walk. They don't even want to go out of their condos, and some are looking to actually move. The pressure and compression that you're going to see there is going to have people looking for places that are close by to come back down. We need a garage because we get that overflow. We're going to get it from Delray as well. We already did, but we're going to get more and more once you get this museum in. And even if we didn't, I trust the business owners that are downtown. I talk to them all the time. I walk the streets. I take my golf cart around. All I ever hear is there's no parking. The larger storefronts that we have, I did a little bit of a study on this about 1.5 years ago on my own. And what I discovered is that a lot of those places, like when a restaurant comes in, say a Rocco Taco or, one of the local success places, they have a plate count at night. They have 400 plates they got to count on. They know they're going to get the people because they're known. And that's what we need. We need a couple local known places. 400 plates, you're talking 150, 200 cars. There's nowhere for them to go. They're never going to fill those spots. So we definitely do need it. I encourage you to look at the city of Fort Myers, not just for the WMOTA idea, but also for parking. The city of Fort Myers is historic. I was a PIO, PR director there way back when their downtown redevelopment just started. They had arguments in parking garage as well. They were able to keep an historically accurate city. They never had big names or anything like that in. They have plenty of people there. They have a small convention center with people coming in all the time. They nailed it. I really suggest you guys take a look at that city, even if you could do a tour. And other than that, I just really want to thank you for everything you've been doing. Obviously, there's a lot of us that are passionate about WMOTA. We're going to follow this until we can't follow it anymore. And I really appreciate the time you guys are putting in. Thank you.
Betty Resch, 207 South L Street. I just want to say one thing. I spoke with Nino, who's the owner of Rustico, the restaurant, and because he had a valet out front, which we're having a little issue with valets right now. And what he said when I talked to him is that my clients, my customers are older, and most of them come from the island. And there's a phone call. Do you have valet parking? And if they don't have valet parking, they don't come. This part, listening to Strong Town's video the other day, one thing about a parking thing is it should be central. It should be a one-stop thing. So if we have that parking garage, that gives the valet people a place to put the cars, because right now they're going into the residentials. They're trying to block off parking on Lake and Lucerne. So this would actually give those, it would facilitate the valet parking, because valet is one of the Strong Town's things, valet parking is a good thing. So this would give a central place for those valet parkers, people to park their cars. Thank you.
Anyone else on that row? Now we're going to move to this side, but we're going to the front to the back.
Thank you. Garages are a luxury here in Lakewood. Very.
In the dress, please.
Oh, I thought you knew who I was.
I do.
Anna Maria Windish, 404 South C Street. And again, parking garages here in Lakewood are a luxury. Very few homes have them. So I would like to have in writing on this list that they have that during a imminent hurricane within 12 hours of landfall, that the parking garage is open to the residents. Thank you.
Next.
Alex Schultz, 612 Second Avenue South, Lake Worth Beach, Florida. About 5:10 this afternoon, I sent both all of you and the commission an affidavit swearing to my observations over the past 3 weeks concerning parking vacancies. So I think you need to take a look at that. I'm willing to, my statements are effectively under penalties of perjury. I have submitted photos that I've taken the past 3 weeks to the commission and to the board that show large amounts of vacancy during so-called peak hours. The parking problem is not there. The study is not accurate. You need to take a look at those photos. You need to start looking downtown at the actual parking. Go there not next Saturday and Sunday. Go this Saturday and Sunday. This Saturday and Sunday is St. Patrick's Day. Is one of the busiest weekends of the year. But the following weekend, go there at 4:30 or so-called peak. 2 weeks from now, Saturday and Sunday, and take a look at the parking. A lot of times, J and K may be filled, but people don't want to walk to L Street. L Street will be half open. M Street is totally open. You go to Lucerne, in front of the post office, that whole row of parking's open. And as Mayor Resch said, people going to Rustico and Paradiso, what they want is valet parking. I see parking from the cars will be lined up waiting for valet. If you want to put a garage in, you need to have it at the beginning of Lucerne and Federal, because if you want to go, if you have a central garage, you get off at Rustico, you got to go on J Street. From J, you got to go to First Avenue South. Then you got to make a left on First Avenue South, and again make a left heading north on K Street to get into the garage. You're just creating a bunch of traffic. I lived downtown for 15 years. I've been an attorney for 48 years. I've done $100 million deals. I've done one development deal, first Fort Lauderdale place. I sent you guys a picture of that. So I sort of know. I think any commissioner here or anybody city commissioner who votes for the project, I'm going to ask for Governor DeSantis to suspend them and to bring this whole issue before the Florida Senate for trial. The parking study is flawed. The 2018 parking study projected $147,000 from a K Street garage, and yet the 2024 study projects $1,010,000 a year from a parking garage. That's almost 7 times as much. How can parking revenue go from 7 times, from 147 to 1,010,000? The study is just flawed, and I sent the pictures to everybody, and I will send them to anybody who wants to see them. And I've copied the Inspector General of the county, state attorney, the Florida Auditor General, and I've asked them to forward everything to the Attorney General and to the Florida Doge. DeSantis is going to shut this down as a woke glass museum, waste of government money.
Very good, Alex. Hi, my name is Todd Townsend, 502 South J Street. The parking study is flawed, as the gentleman said, because it doesn't take into account the ADU, which we're trying to install the ADU so that we can, because ADUs equals density, and that equals money, and that should go to us, the stakeholders in the city. Essentially, you're stealing our street parking, sneaking in paid parking, not good. The garage numbers do not show the cost for going underground. There's no mention of that, right? And then they're talking about clearing this lot that we have a perfect opportunity to have a nice pocket park green area. They're just going to bulldoze that down. So it's just really bizarre to see that you're saying yes to something without all the details. Again, you're basing everything on a projection. And meanwhile, we're in a lot of trouble as far as, as far as what I've already said. So that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Hello, board. I'm Erin Marie Wallace. I live at 304 North J Street. That puts me right at the corner of 2nd and 3rd, which means I'm 3 blocks from downtown. Not only do I know about the valet, I'm in the neighborhood that they park in. I don't appreciate it. I can't park in front of my house. A parking garage with dedicated parking for valet and for guests would solve that problem. I've lived in my home for about 1.5 years. It's a problem that I've only seen get worse as our town gets better. So the parking garage would help be the fulcrum for creating a much better space for a resident to live, park their car, and be able to navigate, particularly when you live right in the heart of downtown. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else, please come up.
Good evening. My name is Eddie Frisch. I live at 716 North Lakeside Drive. My wife and I moved here 3 years ago. We love Lake Worth. We see the progress and the future here. And we spend a lot of time trying to find parking spaces downtown, even at the library when it is open. And I think the project is a one that's much needed. And I look forward to seeing Lake Worth become even greater than it is today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next person. Is there anyone else on that side that would like to speak? I think we have public comments that have been sent in. Emily, please read them.
Jill Carlin, Sunset Avenue. Principles of strong towns. Financial solvency is a prerequisite for long-term prosperity. Land is the base resource from which community prosperity is built and sustained. It must not be squandered. This project is fiscally irresponsible. This project has not been sufficiently researched to prove the need for yet another empty parking garage like the Bohemian, for which we are paying over $70,000 a year. Sorry you have not done your homework, or you have, and unfortunately, you flunked. Any citizen had vendored their properties in the condition you have left these properties on L&M streets, they would be fined heavily. Shame on you for destroying our adorable town, which should be preserved for its culture of South Florida, Palm Beach vernacular architecture. Joanne Burkow, 1105 2nd Avenue South. The need for more parking is of paramount importance if we are ever to have a thriving downtown. Right now, it doesn't much matter, as only the bravest of souls would want to open businesses in downtown Lake Worth Beach. That is because the no-growthers do not want any growth. That is also why there are so many empty storefronts and a limited number of restaurants on our Lula thoroughfares. Yes, kept to the status quo with no growth in sight, I would agree that there is currently no need for more parking. But that is not the way a vast majority in the city feel. We want and encourage managed growth, and that must include more parking. With the rehabilitation of the Gulfstream Hotel and a beautiful new museum in the heart of our town, we have a real shot at improving things in our city. WMODA is getting no special benefits in helping finance this much-needed garage. Business leaders welcome this new development. Only the no-growthers want things to stay stagnant. They make it as difficult as possible for the city to thrive and succeed. With WMODA and the K Street Garage, I can see more restaurants and art galleries wanting to open up. We can finally become the art mecca that we already envisioned we'd be one day, where artists can live and thrive and reach their full potential and live in a city where art is made. Catherine Kohlmeyer, First Avenue South. Regarding the WMODA proposal, I have heard board members' enthusiasm in public, but I have not seen any independent analysis that shows this is a prudent project for the city and the CRA. And the CRA is the recipient of the city's taxpayer dollars. Please do your due diligence. Whatever excuses people give for it is underuse. Is not the Bohemian parking garage a warning? Jenny Powell, 224 North Tom Way. I recommend that you address the following concerns prior to approving the K Street Garage. 1, there are only about 20 Saturday nights per year when parking is a problem. Do not build a new garage for such a limited need. There are other much less expensive options to try first. 2, The net number of parking spaces in the proposed new garage is far lower than the stated due to the 100+ surface parking spaces that the garage will be built on top of, and 50 or so spaces that Mr. Weiner will need to meet parking requirements for his collection. Spending $8.5 million for a new parking garage that will net such a limited number of parking spaces do not make sense. Number 3, the existing Bohemian parking garage is only a few blocks away from the proposed K Street garage and is barely used. We have recommended multiple ways to maximize the use of the parking garage prior to building another garage. Number 4, if the city cannot get a $3.5 million loan from a financial institution due to the city's outstanding debt, $4 million for the Bohemian, $40 million for the road bond, etc., we should not be borrowing from Mr. Weiner, even if we are getting a great interest rate. That is a huge red flag. I would have more respect for and confidence in what you are proposing if you acknowledge that there are some legitimate concerns about building a new garage and work to address those concerns. Instead, you are ignoring every potential pitfall and moving forward using our taxpayer dollars to incur more debt. Please do not say again that this is not a done deal. Everything you have done so far indicates that it is a done deal. Do not incur yet more debt for the taxpayers on this unneeded garage. Vote no. Thank you. Todd Ketchum, South K. I am writing in this evening to voice my support for the public-private partnership with the city and WMOTA with regard to the K Street parking structure. I have read the agreement in its entirety and have no issues with any of the provisions. I urge the board to approve and move forward with this partnership. Thank you. Andrea Sinner, Gulfview Road. Greetings. I am sharing my support via this email in case I don't make the evening tonight. I support the WMOTA project. I love every element of Lake Worth Beach, especially its artistic heritage. It's fantastic that we've captured the attention of an organization like WMOTA. While every project has pros and cons, I hope this project moves forward to bring more art, opportunity, and businesses to Lake Worth Beach without spending years and excessive taxpayer money debating and litigating the details. To move forward productively, we should A, commit to moving the project forward without cost delays, B, ensure that those involved in the details from all sides are motivated and genuinely dedicated to operating transparently and make the project an enduring success for our city. We can be principled in protecting our city's future while working with ethical partners to have a lasting positive impact. Lake Worth Beach has a unique opportunity to move forward in a way that honors its character. Let's seize it. Last one. Bob Kiernan, Bryant Park. I am writing to support the building of the K Street garage. I have lived in Lake Worth Beach for 7 years, and lately it has been difficult to find on-street parking to go to a restaurant or attend an event. Also, some restaurants now offer valet, which decreases the number of available parking spaces for people who want to visit Lake Worth Beach, explore the shops around Lake and Lucerne. I am excited about the possibility of people coming to Lake Worth Beach to visit WMOTA. WMOTA would positively impact the growth and further development of Lake Worth Beach, thus creating the need for additional public parking. Please support WMOTA and the K Street Garage. The future visitors to Lake Worth Beach will be grateful you do. Let's also make families who live here proud to call Lake Worth Beach home.
Thank you. At this time, let's begin our discussion. And then we've had our public comment. We'll have board discussion now. Donna, we'll start with you.
I'll start. I have a bunch of questions that I wrote down actually, just because this is a pretty big, complicated project. So in terms of the city's responsibility to repay the note, I'm just wondering, how is the city going to generate enough revenue to pay for the parking garage? And I'll just run through my questions right now. Like, what if not enough people use the parking garage? I know discussed this a little bit with Betty earlier. Will the garage alone be able to support itself, including the operating and maintenance costs? Also, there's a mention that and I read this in a document, the low interest loan will be repaid with revenues from the city's new parking system, but we don't have a new parking system yet. No?
No.
Okay.
I'll let you
The parking study mentions that paid parking on Lake and Lucerne and the side streets and a residential employee permit parking program in the area surrounding downtown. So is that still the plan? Because, as some people I think have mentioned, and we've talked about it in previous meetings, we don't have an overall understanding yet of the impact of like what all these different elements will have on the downtown and residential parking in the surrounding areas. So this would be helpful to have more knowledge about that.
So I'm sorry.
Okay, no, I'm sorry. I was going to say.
Jen, would you mind? Or
In answer to that, I just noticed that Yannick is here. And I think between the three of you, I think we can get an answer. So we'll wait for all three of you if it need be.
Okay, I'll get started. So the investment from the city, from my understanding, and Yannick will correct me, I'm sure if I'm wrong, comes from penny sales tax. It is not going to be paid off by parking revenues. The parking revenues that will be generated from a city parking plan, which would span all of downtown, would pay for overhead and maintenance after the garage is paid off. So the CRA is using TIF dollars for this. The city's using penny sales tax, and the city is not relying on fees for parking to pay off the debt.
Yannick, did you want to add something to that? Okay.
And Donna, if you could just remind me what the latter half of the question was, I'm sorry.
If I can make one comment, if you read the study recommendations, especially in 2018, because there wasn't a viable partner to build a garage, the kind of K Street garage in the 28 study was more of a pie in the sky. It'd be nice if. The recommendation of the 2018 study was implement a paid parking program so you can manage your parking better, so you can figure out where employees park, so you can figure out if you want to do a residential decal program so that you can generate revenue to pay for maybe a future capital investment like a garage. The projections in the WGI study, we went back and forth with them to see, what kind of occupancy are you anticipating? Make sure you include the potential losses from things like the Bohemian garage, because that's part of the overall city parking program too. And so the projected revenue from the parking garage is like 1.15 million on average over the 10 years. And the projected O&M cost is 115,000. So it nets $1 million. But if you didn't build the garage, if this first study recommendations were taken into place, the on-street parking program that allows you to manage your demand and kind of generate revenue from it generates a separate, I think $1.5 million just without the parking garage even being built. And was a recommendation, and generally is oftentimes a recommendation of, free parking is a subsidy really, and that, there's a kind of famous planning book, The High Cost of Free Parking. It's a recommendation that you're able to manage your parking better if you're charging for it. And then you can have revenue to do things like beautification or maintenance or road repair in that downtown corridor. So one of the reasons why the parking study can be pointed out and said, we don't know if what is the revenue it's going to generate is because there's policy decisions that have to be made by our elected officials. And so when the discussion of a potential residential decal program, or how do we deal with valet parking, how do we, they're going to need to apply for some kind of a permit. We're going to need to manage where valet parking spaces are located, how they're operated, where do employees park, what rates are we going to charge? Are we going to vary those rates on weekends versus weekdays? All that stuff really needs to be discussed in this chamber and decided by the city commission. But what the WGI study tried to do is let's assume some occupancy rates based on generally accepted professional judgment and some rates based on a survey of other communities in South Florida. And it looks like the parking garage will generate $1 million in revenue in excess of its O&M costs. And the parking program will also generate over $1 million in revenue in excess of the costs for things like, affording the enforcement employees and affording the decal program and things like that. So that's kind of the overall picture. But it's hard to really pin down what I think is a justifiable and thoughtful concern of yours, like what happens if, will it sustain itself? We need to know what those rates are going to be as far as what the discussion in this chamber looks like however many months from now when the city commission takes up that discussion. It could be the rates are high and the parking revenue is high, but the residents are angry. It could be that the rates are lower and the revenue is closer to break even. And so it's a discussion that still needs to be had.
I appreciate all of that. And I think that's one of the issues is that, that in terms of the sequencing of this and how much Joe knows my two favorite words on community engagement and how people are really brought into this. And if you would ask like the other side, I hate to say the other side, but we definitely have two sides of arguments, maybe we have more, maybe five. But one of those is that, how do we really bring the residents into this? How do we really respect their opinions? And it's not just like, oh, they're like, what did I hear in one of the comments? Like they're the anti-development people, and we hear this all the time. They're the anarchists, they're the communists, they're the socialists, they're the woke, whatever we want to say. But it's all crazy. But I think part of this is there's so many unknowns. Like if I would just say it sounds great, there's so many question marks.
Yeah.
So how do we really
And
answer some
I'll
of these
say
questions?
that the city staff, so I sat in on a lot of the negotiations of the parking agreement that's before you today and developed the various agreements. And the city staff was very thoughtful in making sure that there are milestones and that those milestones are defined. And what Renee presented, that first design report, is a really important milestone because basically we get the survey of the site, we get the geotechnical exploration, what's the subsurface soil, we learn about any potential environmental hazards that might be there. And we put together, okay, people have said they want these types of facades, this type of garage, this type of look. We actually get numbers based on field data, and we have a come to terms meeting where we say, hey, this thing's going to be $7.5 million. This thing's going to be every bit of $8.5 million. If it has the look that we all love, it's going to be more than that. And so we need to make a sacrifice in some way. And so that is going to be a point of community engagement. And there's going to be, and that's just one of the first steps. As you see those milestones, you see these little icons of a group of people meeting. Those are times when people are going to sit around the table and sit around the room and discuss it. And not only that, but when the city goes through the entitlement process, there's meetings involved with that. And that's just the city making sure they're checking all the boxes from the site plan and looking through all the other elements and permitting. So there are going to be a lot of points where there are discussion and where the blanks that we can't fill in yet start to get filled in. And the only way to really fill them in is with, the policymakers deciding, and those decisions will be made with the input of the residents and the concerned citizenry. So it's unfortunate we can't nail those things down, but I think there's a reason for it. Did I exceed my time?
If I might, I just want to respond. I mean, the purpose of this agreement is to provide certainty with respect to the CRA's obligations to provide a certain amount of financing and how that financing is going to occur and what the structure of that garage is going to look like and how the city is going to maintain that garage on a long-term basis. So I think from that perspective, this agreement does provide a lot of certainty. And down the road, pursuant to this agreement, there will be opportunity for discussion to make sure that this agreement is complied with.
Maybe this is something I don't understand, in terms of the terminology. So next question, this is in terms of the long-term parking agreement. This is about the in lieu of payment. Will the in lieu of payment cover all the aspects of W Motors parking requirements? Does it cover just the museum or the museum and apartment complex?
Thank you. So the in lieu of payment speaks only to the museum. So the parking for the residential is being handled adequately on the L&M sites by the underground parking garage and all of the other provisions per the code. So this in lieu of parking is only for the additional spaces required for the museum, as we do not need in lieu of parking for the residential.
I think it's important to point out also that the city, as I understand it, as William has explained it in some of these meetings, is not under the obligation to provide those spots really. It is you're building this museum and you're gonna need 51 spots and you can pay the city in lieu of providing those 51 spots. And the city is using this opportunity to say, let's make sure we have those spots and more. And they're not just gonna be for the museum, they're gonna be for everybody. They're gonna be in this public garage.
That's a good point.
If I could also say that the only reason why the CRA is a party to the long-term parking maintenance agreement and requires your approval tonight is because the CRA will own the property. Okay, so that's the only thing with respect to the CRA's consideration with respect to the long-term parking agreement.
And one thing I would like to expand on with respect to that. So the city's in lieu of parking is not just for Woodmota. That is an existing code provision right now for anybody in the downtown, actually anybody who's developing in the city. But in a traditional sense, usually that in lieu of parking is a fee that is calculated based on the number of spaces for which you have a deficit, and there are no spaces provided. In the case of Woodmota, we are working with the city and the CRA to actually add spaces to the downtown difference. So in most cases, you pay whatever, your $1 million for the spaces for which you are short, and then there are no additional spaces added to the overall number of spaces in the city. In this instance, it's different because we are being a part of the solution and adding more spaces.
Yeah. All right, so I'm going to start out by saying, never in my life, anybody who has known me has accused me of not doing my homework. I always do my homework. I've read these agreements no fewer than 3 times, and I'm comfortable with the terms as expressed therein. Luckily for me, I guess I didn't have to attend the meetings that Brett just alluded to. I'm glad to just get to read them in this form rather than hammering out how the sausage gets made. So in reviewing them all, I'd also like to say that my vote tonight will not be influenced by threats of further action based on my vote. I like this museum project. I want the kids of Lake Worth Beach, I want the residents of Lake Worth Beach to have access to this museum, but that's separate and apart from this parking that we need. I would say with respect to parking anecdotally, there are more things going on the west side of town these days. I find myself parking at the Bohemian when I do things on the west side of town. So I think as more things happen over there, including that new coffee shop, we're going to see a greater need for parking. I'll also say that when I have visitors to town, we often meet at my house and then everybody loads into my car to drive downtown because we're never sure we can find adequate parking. And that can be a difficult thing for visitors. I mean, I've had people come that are supposed to meet me at 6 o'clock. They circle, call me up and say, where can we meet? But I can park. And I say my driveway, coming up to the 1400 block in North O. And that's pretty much all I have to say.
Daniel.
Since we started talking about parking rates and you mentioned the $1 million profit, I wanted to ask if you could say whether or not you believe, in your professional opinion, that the Lucerne and Lake Ave streets between Dixie and Federal are going to be paid parking.
So yeah, that's not my call, obviously. That's the call of the city commission. It's a policy decision to make. The parking program definitely recommends those curbside spots on Lake and Lucerne. And those are prime parking spots. Right now, that is one of the only places where there's any regulation, so that there's at least a cap on the length of time you park. Because if you own a business like the barber shop on Lake Avenue, you don't want somebody parking in front of your barbershop for 3 hours when you can turn over probably 9 customers in that amount of time. So I think the intent of the parking program, completely irrespective of the idea of a parking garage, is to manage the parking inventory, facilitate turnover, and open
No,
up
I
opportunities.
understand, I understand that.
So,
But in your
yes.
professional opinion is yes, right?
No,
you would-
so my professional
It's more or
opinion,
more likely, do you believe it's gonna be very likely?
I would never say I think one thing or other is gonna happen in this
So the
chamber.
projection of the 1
commission.
million, the projection of the 1 million is with a full parking garage, like
No.
give me like a, today, next time, and whenever the parking
So
garage is
I
done.
don't remember what the numbers are, but they're based on an average occupancy rate. It's maybe 60% in certain times of the day, but I don't remember what it is off the top of my head. I can
But throughout the
communicate it.
year, there has to
general.
be like a year average, right?
So-
Of occupancy in order to meet that $1 million that you're claiming.
So just to be clear, so the study takes average parking occupancy for downtown Lake Worth and overlays that on the number of spots available and then multiplies that by the rate, the cost of the parking. So you look at how much you expect it to be full, what the duration of the stay is, and what the price of the rate is, and then you generate. Now, obviously, it's estimation, but yes, in professional judgment, it's the best available data and a conservative assessment of what it would look like.
Because if Lucerne and Lake Avenue were to remain free, right, that would factor into your idea of how much occupancy there would be on average in that parking garage, right? And therefore affect that $1 million
So
rate.
the recommendations of the parking study are to implement a parking program and to make paid parking on Lake and Lucerne. Whether or not you build a parking garage, that's the recommendation, is that there shouldn't be free parking for,
But more so
long
now,
divisions.
wouldn't you say, if you have an asset, or we have two assets, or we will, right? You have one parking garage that's empty, you can have another one. You can't have free parking on Lake and Lucerne while you're trying to finance this other parking garage, right? It doesn't make sense. So that's something that I would like to bring to discussion to the public, to start thinking about the fact that this will most likely lead, like you said, you mentioned that free parking is a subsidy. It is a subsidy because I believe a lot of residents take that as for granted. I mean, it's important to them to have that free parking. Now, I believe that there will be paid parking throughout the entire downtown. There will no longer be free parking, and I think that's something that we could subsidize. I mean, it's a subsidy, right? It's a luxury that residents have, that you don't have to pay for downtown parking. But we can't do that and also be trying to finance and build this parking structure. You know what I mean? How much debt are we going to accumulate? So I think it's safe to say that once this garage is done, there will no longer be free parking in downtown. So coming back to this agreement, I have concerns about the perks that W Moda will be receiving. The 1 hour free parking, I believe, is unnecessary. When you go into debt to finance something, right, you don't start by cutting your income. So I think it's irresponsible for us to take away that hour of potential income while we're still trying to service a debt. I believe there should be no exceptions. There are many other businesses downtown whose money they contributed towards the ability to make this possible. And I don't believe they will be receiving, or at least in a contract, they won't be receiving any special treatment. So I don't believe we should be doing that for W Moda. Potentially, maybe after we service the debt, after we're done paying for that, we could extend to them a discount, right? Because we'd be more stable. I would like the public to consider that. And also there should be a stipulation in regards to this 50,000 patrons that are estimated to come. I believe there should be no perks now, maybe perks later once we're done paying off the debt, and only perks to be considered after we've seen proof of that actual influx of tourists into the city. I think we've extended a lot. We might be overextending ourselves I don't think W Motor will pull out of this agreement because they can't have their 1 hour free parking or their large museum event parking discount. And the 50 spaces to be reserved to the public and W Motor, the parking garage is going to be a public asset. The commission is going to be the one governing it. They're accountable to the residents. I don't think we'll find ourselves in a situation where the parking garage is sold to a different entity and nobody can park in there. I don't think I think the accountability aspect of governance will protect us from that. And there should be no strings attached to this public asset. At the end of the day, we're the ones taking on this risk. Because there's no guarantees to that occupancy level. And there should be no strings attached to a public asset like this. So I would propose that we eliminate all of the proposed perks under the operation of the parking garage in section 4. I would also like to say publicly, because I think it's something that hasn't been mentioned. It's 142 parking spots that were gained. Is that correct?
I have 147.
147.
We can go with whichever you want.
That's fine. So the $8.5 million for this parking garage, that's prior to the interest, right? That doesn't include the money that we'll be paying in interest.
Right.
How much is the one with interest? Is it 11 million? Or
No, it's about an extra 300,000 to 400,000.
Okay. So going off the 8.5 mil for 147 parking spots, that's about $57,000 or almost $58,000 per parking spot. That does not seem a wise investment to me at all. W Moda sent out an email too about trying to address some concerns that the public has. And I find it interesting that they put attendance comparisons to the Norton, Henry Morrison Flagler, and Maureen Museum, but they have failed to provide us any attendance records for their museum in the past whatever years they've been operating. So if we're going to do this parking garage, it should be hands off, no strings attached, making as much money as we possibly can with no perks. There's no reason why W Moda residents or patrons should be receiving first class attention instead of residents and patrons of all the other businesses downtown. That's it.
Yes.
So I've been involved in this, so I've read the agreement and understand how we got to where we are. The thing that I want to point out is that WMODA and the development could have just paid $1 million and walked and said, "Here you go," and moved on. And that would have been a smart business decision, quite frankly, because beyond that, as we go into a public-private partnership, as we're talking about here, they're bringing a lot more. They're bringing financing. And what I just heard is that there's no collateral. The land is still ours. It's just financing for the project. And at a discounted rate. They're entering into an agreement when I've entered in my business, a lot of public-private partnership agreements. It doesn't look a lot like a partnership agreement. It looks like an accountability agreement. That was a good word you used to make sure that all these steps are here and the city is very much protected through this whole process. And the risk is honestly shifted over towards the constructor of this process. So it's less partnery than normal, I would say. But I wanted to really just publicly thank Mr. Weiner and that company for remaining in this partnership. I imagine these, as I've read this agreement, I imagine those discussions were very strenuous and stressful as you were thinking about constructing this garage at a price that's affordable, and you can do it quickly, right? So, I really think that it was, so I appreciate that, very much appreciate it. And thank Mr. Weiner for sticking with us on this partnership, because you're bringing, if you believe we need a garage, right? That's the premise of this whole thing. If you believe we need a garage, we really appreciate you sticking with it and bringing the resources, bringing the financing and the patience to pull off this garage with us. Now I think about the board, our board is CRA board, and I think about the city's role here. I would hate for our board to not give the city a chance to say yes, right? So that's why I really think it's important for us to pass this, because if we don't pass it, the city doesn't have a chance to pass it. And think about it from the elected official standpoint, who was elected to make that decision. We're appointed. We have to think about it as far as our budget goes, right? And so we're committing a lot of funds to this solution for Lake Worth. And so I had to look into the future to see if, okay, do we have funds left over to do all the other good work that we do on affordable housing, beautification, all these different things, and we do, right? So we do have funds left over, a good amount of funds. Our capability will not shrink because of this project. So I think it's important for us to pass it, give the city a chance to think about it and pass it, because they need an opportunity to make that policy call, right? On the importance of this garage for downtown Lake Worth. So that's my thoughts on this, and turn it back to you, Chair.
Some of the things that we haven't thought about, and I don't think they haven't been thought about, but the penny sales tax money. If we don't build these parking spaces, what happens to the penny sales tax money? You know, we have to give that back. We have to, you know, what is the role for that? And then many people keep confusing the city's tax dollars with the TIF money that the CRA uses for their projects. They are two entirely different things. The CRA is not asking the residents to come up with tax dollars for their share of the projects. The CRA is committed to raising their own funds, just as they recently received $2.2 million for affordable housing in the form of a grant. The CRA is an independent agency. While we work with the city commission and while we work with the other parts of the city, we are independent and we try to behave that way. We try to make decisions that reflect our beliefs. And how many surrounding cities have paid parking in their downtowns? I think almost all of them. But Drew raised a very good point that we are only a stopgap. We are one vote. We as a unity will make one vote, and whether we say, let's take this to the city commission and let them make the final decision. And if we voted no, we're an obstacle to them making the final decision. And I don't think that that's our role. But I always try and listen to the people who come and fill the room. Twice as many of you, including the people who filled the room tonight and the people who sent in their public comments, more than 50% of you all were in favor of this project. If I am to listen to the people who put us here, who recommend us, who believe in us, who listen to us, if I am to listen to them, then I need to make the decision to vote in favor of this project. Because you have spoken, and I know how to listen. So at this point, I'd like to call for a vote. We have had a motion, we've had a second, we've had discussion. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 I'm sorry. And any nays?
Nay.
Okay, the decision is 4-1 for this project to go forward. Thank you.
Now they can park out on the streets.
Could we have the executive director's report, please?
Sure. My director's report is rather thin tonight. I'm sure you'll appreciate that. I just wanted to give a big thank you to all the commissioners, board members, people in the public who came to the Women's Build for Habitat last week on Thursday and Friday. It was a considerable amount of fun. We got to meet a number of homeowners, new homeowners, and some older homeowners that have been there for a while. And thank you to those who volunteered your time and your effort and also your money. We certainly appreciate that as well. And there are some opportunities for an upcoming build if anybody is interested. It will be in the 100 block, I believe, of C Street. And it's actually a rehab that we'll be doing. So if you are interested, please let me know. And that's all I have for today. Thank you.
At this time, we're going to have board member comments. Let's start with Daniel.
Last meeting, I think we talked a little bit about, the outreach has been going on west of, the tracks on, Lake and Lucerne. And I was wondering if we could, potentially come to consensus on asking staff to maybe give us another summary of the approach to the outreach in that area. Maybe some testimonials from individuals who've engaged in that type of work on behalf of the CRA. Just so that we can maybe soon, hopefully then later, reamp outreach and see if there's any opportunities. Since I've served on the board, I haven't really heard any discussion around that issue. So I would like us, my colleagues, to support and that, and asking staff if we can start working on an update on outreach in that area and see what we can do to. I don't know, identifying opportunities.
So, I feel like that was a question. Should I answer it? Or...
You can answer it if you choose.
Are you talking about the grant program outreach?
Yeah, Mike.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think we were all supportive of that. Like what's going on with the outreach. So that's my personal opinion. But anyway, my closing comments. Thanks for everyone for coming out tonight and being a part of this process. And I really appreciate all the engagement that we get. And Joan and staff, you guys always do a great job. I'm glad you're feeling better, Emily. I haven't seen you since the last meeting. You nailed reading the public comments, I'm gonna say. All right. Thanks.
Done.
Yeah. I think, just in all honesty, I was really torn between a yay and an A on this one. And I know many people I've spoken to are very strongly opposed to this parking garage. Less so maybe with WMOTA, but really feel strongly that the parking garage is unnecessary. I'm still not 100% sure that we really need this. And in all honesty too, I'm always honest, but even more tonight with so many other things going on in the world and in my field where so many there's lots of cuts. I'm trying not to be glued to my phone now, but there are going to be more rifts in the federal government, which I am a federal government person. So, with all of this stuff, I think it's like we want to hope that this goes well. Not just the parking garage, WMOTA, this whole projected plan, the parking decals, the residential parking, the changes in people's lives. Sorry, I won't take up too much time, but I'll wax on a little bit. The changes in people's lives won't be too disruptive. And I think we just really do need to recognize that and not just kind of say, well, they're the crazies and they don't want anything good. How does that saying go? We can't have anything good because whatever. There's a saying, I screwed it up. But anyway, we do want to have good things, but I think we also really need to recognize that this is a disparate population here. There are well-off people, more on the east side, less on the west side. We're trying to bring the city together. It's not an easy task. And I think we just really need to be mindful, cognizant, but also more than just be mindful, do something about it. And I think that's a bit of your polemic too, Daniel, is like, what are we actually doing? So let's hope that this all goes well. But to your point about trying to work on these things, I don't know how all of these program managers are going to work together, the 3 PMs, but I really want to hear more about that. And I want to make sure that we do have a lot more engagement on how these things unfold. So it's, and we bring people in as they're unfolding and we listen to people. Thank you.
Leah?
Renee, it was great to see you in person. Thanks for coming tonight. Art Wars was a ball for anybody who made it. I'm so glad that we brought that event to town. It's just such a cool event, nice evening out. These are fantastic. I don't know if you all in the audience have seen these. They're these nice little postcards with happiness comes in waves, leave ordinary behind, come and explore Lake Worth Beach. And I think that's exactly what we're hoping to increase the number of people who are doing. Residents, visitors alike. Thank you.
One of the things that Betty brought up tonight was the idea that is being floated in a bill by the state of Florida to curtail CRAs. Community redevelopment agencies is the lifeblood in a lot of cities and how we eliminate blight and bring in development. I am asking all of you to write to your state legislators and give your opinion. It is now a bill. I don't even know if it's made it out of a committee yet, but we need to say our CRA does a good job. Our CRA brings money to our town, and we are eternally grateful, and we're willing to fight for them. Sometimes your letter means a lot. And if you don't write a letter, you have no opinion, and it's nothing that they're going to listen to. So please contact your legislators. I think we should post our legislators' addresses on the CRA website so that people will know how to find them. I think someone may be kind enough in a blog to write a letter that somebody could just kind of copy and paste the words and say, hey, this is not a good idea. But if you just say this is not a good idea, that may be enough. But I do want you to write a letter. I did attend the Women's Build for the Habitat for Humanity. It was interesting. I was painting. I got on the roof one time and I quickly decided that that was not for me. So I did painting this time. And I want you to know that these women, this organization, raised over $600,000 for affordable housing. And last year's goal was 500,000, and we had the most in the country. So I'm thinking that our 600,000 will probably be the most in the country. And over 300 women worked on this build. And so it was just phenomenal. And not only was it 2 homes that were being built from scratch, but the home that I worked on was the home that was in the neighborhood. And we were painting that home. They were painting other homes. They were working on people's fences. They were doing all sorts of things to make our community better. And one of the things that I thank the Habitat for Humanity for and the women that were there is that they have enhanced the fabric of Lake Worth Beach. It is not just one house at a time. Sometimes it's one street at a time. So I want to thank them for all their hard work. I want to thank Joan and her staff for having the people that are on the CRA to join in the build. I think that it was an awesome experience, and I look forward to doing it next year. Thank you. Oh, and yes, we now have an attorney comment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to piggyback on what you were talking about with respect to the CRA legislation that's pending. So for reference, it's Senate Bill 1242 and it's House Bill 991. I know that the Florida Redevelopment Association does have talking points, which we can provide to you, but there are many bills that have been filed in the history of the Community Redevelopment Agency. And this one is currently the most direct, could have the most direct impact on what you discussed tonight, even with respect to issuing debt and undertaking new projects in the immediate future. So if you have any friends that are state reps or know any folks who are state reps, you can talk to them and express to them the need to not allow this bill to pass in its current form. So thank you very much. Have a wonderful evening. It's good to see everybody.
Can you give us those numbers again?
Sure. It's Senate Bill 1242. And House Bill 991. I know they are assigned to different committees, so they're just going through the committee process, but sometimes that's difficult to follow, and sometimes they just end up on the floor of either the House or the Senate at a moment's notice. So the sooner we can do something now to protect what the CRAs have been created to do and do, the better. Thank you. I said do, but anyway, no thank you.
And can I have a move to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.